what we've got is, this was a new plug that came out of my shed. It has an instruction label on it that tells you what goes where. Actually gives you the colours of the wires and stuff on it, which is quite helpful. You wouldn't normally have that. And what I'm going to do is show you how to basically replace a plug. So this is just a computer cable with a kettle lead on it. It's probably rated to 13 amps. I'm going to just cut this off here. So yeah, that's don't keep these. Throw it in the wee waste, because if someone plugs that in, it's very dangerous. Top tip. Right. So I now have an empty cable and an empty plug. I'm going to strip this and I'm going to make the connections inside the plug, but I need to open the plug first to see what's in there. Now I've only got 2 screwdrivers, so I might not have the right exact size for the screws, but I'm going to go for this big middle one first to undo it. There's a sticky label on it. There's fluff inside it. It's been in my shed. Right, there we go. So 3 connections in here, and they line up with the drawing rather helpfully. It's probably one to photograph and keep. The bottom left, which is that pin there, that's called the neutral. Blue wire goes to it. That's when we think of electricity flowing, the simplest way, but not necessarily the scientifically accurate way, is that electricity goes from live to neutral. The live is the provider of power. So the live is the one over here on the right, which has the fuse next to it. The fuse is a sort of overprotection device. So if the power going through the fuse becomes too much, the fuse will blow and it will stop the power going through. The power then goes through the device and it comes back to the neutral pin and goes out effectively. So it comes in through the live, goes out through the neutral. The one at the top, which you'll notice on the other side, this one, that's a longer pin and it's known as the earth pin. There's actually a little difference between these two and that one as well. Aside from it being longer, it's a longer pin. So when the reason it's longer is when you push it into the socket, it opens the shutters on the socket and allows the other 2 to go in. So that means the shutters protect the 2 terminals in the socket, so you can't stick something in them. Historically, children used to stick knitting needles into sockets and electrocute themselves because they're made of metal. You can't do that on a modern socket because you have to put something in the top pin first to push open the shutters. There's a black bit on the live and neutral. The black bit is an insulation, and the idea is that when you plug it in part way, so if I plug it in to here part way, you can see that these pins are not fully in, and the black bit is stopping me getting my fingers in and touching it. So it's an electrocution prevention measure. They insulate them.
Okay.
So little people can't get their fingers behind the socket when it's part plugged in. It's quite a clever idea. Older plugs don't have that. Anyway, neutral, earth, live, very important. So when I put this cable into here, which is kind of coiled up because it's been curled up in my shed, what I'm keen to do is make sure that the cables within this reach each terminal. And I've still got the outer sheathing on it to go underneath this bit, which is actually a clamp, strain relief. So this bit, there's 2 screws underneath that go into that. You probably saw them earlier, those 2. If I've released these off with my wrong screwdriver, should be a Phillips really. Let's try that, might fit better. Yeah, just gonna release these off a bit. Always choose the right screwdriver for the job. So that's now released, and there's a big hole under there where cables can go. This, when it's tightened up with the cable in it, will hold the cable in place. And if anyone tugged on the cable, it would pull on this strain device rather than trying to pull the cable out of the terminals.
Love it.
Yeah. So what I've got to do is try and cut this cable so that the black bit stays under there. The blue wire comes around here and goes into that one. The brown wire goes into that one, live, and the yellow wire comes up to this one at the top. So, back to my bit of wire. And I've got to do all this without damaging the cables inside. So some people use a Stanley knife to run around the outside, but there's a risk with that you'll go in too far, damage the internal insulation, because you obviously got the black, but you also in here you've got the blue, the yellow and the brown insulation, which I don't want to damage. So I'm going to take about 7 centimeters, 2.5 inches off. And what I'm going to do is just clip this very gently around the outside with my cutters, just to try and damage the outside but not break it. And if I bend it back, you can see it starts to stretch. And I've exposed, you can see the brown one in there, brown cable, just about, starting to appear. So I'm going to twist this, and I'm just going to snip a bit more. Drop my lid. Thank you. I'm just going to carefully snip this until I can see them. I don't want to damage the internals. Oh, there we go. So as I'm sort of going around, it's sort of starting to separate it there. It's a careful process. It's quicker with a knife, but there's a risk of damage here, and we don't want to do that. You can buy stripping tools. They work in different ways. Worth practicing with some, see how you get on. There we go. So that's stripped. The internal sheathing isn't damaged. I've marked it, but I haven't damaged it. It's okay. So now I've got my 3 colours, and that needs to come into here. The brown one needs to be short and go into there. The blue one needs to go into this one here, and the green one needs to be longer and come out onto this. There is also another clever bit of design in this. If you were to pull this cable out, the short one that goes direct to the brown, which is a really dangerous one, that would pull out first, because it's just a really short run and it's directly connected. By that coming out first, you've taken the live power off the device and off the cable, making it much safer. The second one, theoretically, would be the blue one, because that's probably the next closest. And the last one, which is the safety one, the earth cable, that's the one that connects to the metal outside of whatever device is connected. It is the protection part of the system. That one will be the last one to pull out. Anyway, I'm going to strip these back using my cutters to what I think is right. We'll see how well I do. So I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to put that into there, and so this one needs to be stripped back to somewhere about here. I should, if I don't push too hard on this, I should be able to pull that through and strip some of the sheathing back. And I can actually twist that to do it. There's a little bit there that's going to come off. So I've now got a bare bit that's twisted, and I can cut that off. Now that should then go into there. If I do the same with this blue one, sorry, it's a bit tricky to see. I'm kind of thinking it's going to go around up in this space and back, so I'm going to do it from about there. Like that. Managed to do it without breaking any of those copper strands, which takes practice. Bearing in mind I've been installing electrical systems for about 30 years. It's not necessarily a skill that's developed very quickly. And this one is the longest of them all. I'm going to do to about there. Now this isn't just about repairing plugs or replacing plugs on things that are broken. This is also if you were making lamps, for example, which I've done quite a few times. I turn a piece of wood on my lathe and I drill a hole through it, and I put a fitting on the top, bayonet with a light fitting. There's a cable that comes out, needs to have a plug on it. I use those rustic cables. I've got 3 wires and they're braided, they look lovely. And yeah, so I'm fitting plugs on new things.
I have a lamp that's broken actually. I have a lamp that's broken actually. This might be the problem.
You can fix it. So I've got 3 that have now got different lengths because that's what I've measured out. Yeah. So what I'm going to do, 3 different lengths. Well done, video lady. I'm going to push this behind here, and what I'm going to try and do, it's a bit fiddly, going to try and get this brown one in as I push it through. So I'm going to just loosen off these terminals because they're all done up at the moment. So just undo them, not all the way because I don't want the screws to fall out. Just loosen that off. Da-da-da-da. It's about 3 turns, something like that, just so that they're open and ready to take the cables. Right. Now what I'm going to do is carefully feed that brown one into there like that. Now that one disappeared into there and there's no cable showing at all now. It's insulated outside the terminal and it's not insulated inside the terminal, and that's because I cut exactly the right amount and left the copper showing. So I'm tightening that up. I could do it tighter, but I might shear it off or break it. I can kind of feel it, that's about right. It's not pulling out of there. That's good. Done. This one, I'm going to turn around and try and get in there. I can actually push this up, which is rather helpful. You can take these out, and a lot of plugs, you can see this one's tough now, of course. But yeah, normally you can slide them up out of the way if you want to do it that way, but I'm going to put that in up there. And there we go. So again, it's just a bit more than I needed there, but I'm going to hold that like that and tighten this down. Fiddly, fiddly. Most engineering jobs are a bit bigger than this, not quite as fiddly. And then the last one is the earth, this green and yellow. I'm tying it down. If you find something really old, you might find that the brown is red and the blue is black and the green and yellow is green. Those were the old wiring colours before we harmonised with the EU. So those are all in there. Now I'm going to tighten this strain, but I'm going to push the cable in as I do it. So I'm taking the strain off. So that if anyone tugs on this cable, it's definitely the strain relief that takes the load, not the terminals. I'm going to tighten this up, similar to the connections, like that. Now if I pull on this, nothing happens. Nice and tight. Now these cables, you can see pass neatly around in here. That one's direct and that goes direct to there. Now I can just put the cover on this and it's done. I will show you the fuse just so that you can see what they look like if it ever blows. This is a 13 amp fuse. There are different ratings for different power needs. So if this were a lamp, it wouldn't need 13 amps. The lamp would probably draw less than an amp. So you'd go for a lower rating. You want to try and limit the current capability as much as possible, because this is saying how much power am I going to allow into this cable before it blows. And obviously the less that is, the safer it is. So if you don't need 13 amps, then you put a lower one in. Lamps and things tend to have 3 amp fuses. That goes in there like that. This goes back on here like so, and I tighten it back up like that. And there is a rear wire plug. Cool, done. How long did that